Hey everybody, my name is Chad. I'm a peer leader over here at the Wilkes Recovery Revolutions R3 Center. I'm also a person in long-term recovery. I'm here with my friends.
I'm Justin, I'm also a person in long-term recovery. I work as transportation and a recovery coach for the R3 Recovery Center.
Hey guys, I'm Brad and I too am in long-term recovery.
And we're popping on here just to talk a little bit about connection in our recovery journey and the importance of the connection. You know, when I was in active use, there was not a whole lot of connection for me. You know, I spent a lot of time by myself, essentially locked up in my house. And I didn't get in touch with a whole lot of people. You know, I wasn't around people a whole lot. And I feel like that was a major detriment to me. You know, when I first started getting sober and started coming to meetings and getting involved in my recovery community, it it put me in a position to be around people who had already done what I was trying to do. It put me in a position to be around people who could help me change the way that I thought about myself, because I didn't think very highly of myself when I first started this thing. What do you think about it, Justin?
Connection really means everything in recovery. I also was an isolator. I spent the majority of my time, if not all my time, by myself or with like one or two other people. And those other people were not the best for me to be around. And as I got further into my addiction, I really just became isolated. I would not go into public, and if I did, I'd do it as shortly as possible. But since coming into recovery, I've realized that I really do enjoy talking to people, and I try to talk with as many people in recovery in my little circle as I do. I mean, every day, as many as I can, and it really has helped my life spectacularly. It's been great.
Interesting.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, connection for me was, I think when we first show up in whatever program that we're getting into, whether it be a 12-step program or detox or whatever, we're not familiar with the connection anymore. We get to a point where we don't really have, a lot of times we've alienated anybody that, by default has to care for us. We kind of burn the bridges with our family and our friends and our personal relationships. And, when I showed up, they were so kind. It was, I was like, what is going on here? I hadn't had any, I don't want to say that, but, not all my personal relationships have been destroyed, but at the same time, my behavior had pushed people away. And I kept coming back to these meetings with these people and everybody seemed happy and genuine. And, I thought that there was some kind of catch, but it really wasn't. It was about learning how to re-engage with people. It was about learning how to be vulnerable, which was, as people who struggle with substance abuse, a lot of times the answer that we're given by people who don't understand is, you got yourself into this mess, now get yourself out of it. And that's just not how it works once you start getting involved in recovery. And I learned pretty early on, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. Connection leads to sobriety. I had to see it. I had to engage in it. I had to be a part of. Historically, I can't stay sober on my own. When I get left to my own devices, good things don't necessarily happen to me. But when I can stay connected with people in recovery, whether it be just coming down here to the recovery center, going to meetings, staying in contact with my sponsor and guys that I sponsor, like recovery becomes a lifestyle, becomes what we do. And we don't have any other choice. We can lie to ourselves and say, hey, I can figure this out on my own. But the evidence in my own life shows when I'm trying to figure it out on my own, things are historically more difficult than when I choose to reach out and stay connected with other people.
Absolutely. So it kind of falls back on that show me your friends and I'll show you your future type of deal. When I was by myself, those things didn't necessarily, 2 and 2 didn't necessarily equal 4 in that scenario. I wasn't the best influence on my own. So when I started getting around people in recovery, people who had been there, and I started listening to what they had to say and taking their advice, because whether I liked it or not, people around me had been through the things that I went through. You know, you guys had already been there. I was coming out of detox. You got people could come in and talk to me and be like, yeah, I remember when I got out of detox and this and this and this is what I came across, you know. And I think in long-term recovery, you know, that stuff was even more important, you know, because now the pathway of recovery that I follow is 12-step recovery. And especially getting into the point where I have to look back and take stock of all the events in my life and the people in my life in this situation. It was incredibly beneficial for me to have that connection with my sponsor who I trusted enough to share those things without any sort of judgment, and come to the understanding that the things that I thought were terrible maybe weren't as terrible, or it didn't set me that much apart from the other people. You know, that was a big deal for me too. And it still is a big deal for me today, you know. Whatever I'm doing, I try and reach out to other people, you know, happy, sad, angry, whatever. I try to reach out to other people. I mean, that's what's worked for me. Do you guys have anything else you want to add?
I will. Something that I noticed, as Brad's pointed out in the past, I've heard him say that when you walk in, say to the 12-step meetings, and everybody seems so happy. It was one of those things that, I mean, I'd never been a happy person before, but through that connection with all of the people, I've noticed, like, even when I'm having tough days and I speak to people in my little recovery circle, they seem to get better. And it's really changed every aspect of my life, speaking with these people on a daily basis. But that's real.
Thanks, Justin. You know, I've had the pleasure of, I was around when y'all showed up, and just to see the changes, you know, like y'all bought into the program, you know, we all happen to go to the same fellowship, which, you know, to see the change in these guys from when they show up, and it happens with all of us, and we don't see it happen. We can't see ourselves in the mirror in that change happen, but the other people in these rooms do. And then all of a sudden, when we stick around long enough, we get to watch that guy that came in sick, shaky, you know, literally scared to death. You know, when you show up in those rooms, and I say this a lot, you don't show up on a winning streak. You don't just pop yourself into a 12-step meeting like, I think I'm going to go visit these folks and see what they're all about. You know, you show up usually with some financial difficulty, probably some troubles at work. Chances are things at home aren't going too well. You know, you may have some legal issues. You know, and it's amazing the amount of pain that we're willing to put ourselves through in order to sort of see that what we're doing isn't working. Because the crazy thing about this disorder, disease, sickness, whatever you want to call it, it's tricky. You know, I can, you know, I've heard it said before is, you know, we can be laying in a gutter looking down on people. You know, and when I started to recognize, and the longer I stay in the rooms, the more I see it. You know, you come in and you show up thinking that you're different. There's this term called terminal uniqueness, this idea that I'm so different and so special. Well, that idea will kill me. But the longer I stick around, the more I realize that the stories are a little bit different. You know, there's a little bit, you know, maybe the people in it are different, the places that got us there are different, but essentially when you get down to the nuts and bolts of this thing, it's all the same. You know, we wanted to change the way that we felt. It turns out, due to some genetic issues and maybe some other bad habits, it's not an opportunity that we're afforded. You know, I don't have a stop. I don't have a moderation button. And the other thing I found is the longer I stay in recovery, I find these things pop up in other aspects of my life. And when I stay connected to this program and I stay connected to people, I can seek help for those things. Just simple conversations. You know, people that I can call on a daily basis and have a conversation with that aren't going to judge me. They're going to tell me, you know, what to do with my life. They're going to give me suggestions that 95% of the time, probably 100% of the time, are things that they've used that have worked for them. And when I see how alike we are, going to meeting after meeting, taking phone call after phone call, making phone calls, it's all the same stuff. You know, it's almost, I don't want to say, I don't know if it's ironic or comical or a combination of both, but at some point it just sort of clicks. You recognize, oh, like we're all almost exactly the same. The places, the stories, the substances may be different, but when I can stay engaged, when I can be a part of, when I have some accountability, when I have somebody I can turn to, people that I trust, because that was always an issue. I'm not telling you a thing. I don't trust you. And I didn't trust those people when I showed up. I don't trust them. They were happy, like real deal happy. I'm like, what is this all about? You know, I was sick and shaky and scared to death. And, you know, I kept showing up and I learned, you know, I saw people come in and I've seen people overcome just tragic stuff and stay sober through it. You know, I've learned at this point, there's nothing in my life because of the connection that I have with people in the rooms and people in recovery. There's nothing in my life that can happen that a drink or drug makes better. Like I'm still going to have that problem, but now I've got, you know, I've got big problems because historically when I light that fire, it's a little difficult to put out. You know, it takes, last one took quite a while, you know? So I'm not willing to, today, I'm not willing to give up those connections and I'm not willing to roll those dice. You know, I know if I reach out to the people in the rooms and the people in recovery and I discuss what's going on with me, it's not going to be comfortable, but I know that if I do that, I stay sober. I have enough evidence in my life to see that now. When I do the stuff that I've done for the last almost 5 years, I don't drink and do drugs. And my life is better because of it. That's about the long and the short of it.
That's Brad. Anybody else got anything they want to add? All right, well, I appreciate you fellas for coming on and talking with us a little bit today. If you watch this whole thing and you feel like contributing, tell us what Connection and Recovery has done for you down in the comments. Y'all have a great Thankful Thursday.